Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at another 30 minutes kit, and this right here is the 30-minute missions Verdenova Green, and this is a standard 30-minute missions. I've taken a look at one of these in quite some time, so I'm very excited about it, and this one right here has a little bit of a Sazabi vibe about them. Now pretty much every one of these 30-minute missions is a little bit of a take or a adaptation of a Gundam design. They all have been all the way back to the original kit, which looked like a Jim, and the second one which looked like a Zaku. They've always done it. Now we've got a little bit more style rolled into it with a bit of a Sinanju vibe, but in a more typical green, very Ziani. Anyway, once again I got this right here through Hobby Link Japan, link is down there in the description. But yeah, let's check it out. So yeah, once this kit is built, this right here is what we get. So once again, this has some serious Sinanju vibes. Just in case you're not too familiar with what exactly a Sinanju is, it's this one right here on the right. It's a very popular and awesome mobile suit that is from Gundam Unicorn. As you can see, this has very similar aspects all over the place. Obviously not as fancy and over the top, not in red, but the shoulders, the head, the silhouette is all definitely there. And that is usually what Bandai does when it makes these kits. So when it does come to detail and all of that mecha model kit good stuff, these kits have gotten better and better and better. Now I will mention there's a little bit of a caveat to that there is some structural issues now with these kits that wasn't really there back when they first came out. Now we'll talk about those sort of structural issues a little bit later on when I'm talking about the articulation on this kit, but for now let's talk more about the overall look. Now there are two versions of this available, the green one we're looking at right now, and there is also a navy blue version as well with some grey segments where this has its darker aspects. I do feel the colour scheme on this one gels together a little bit better, and of course if you want to you can mix and match parts across the entire range. The usual stuff we'd expect to see on 30-minute missions kits is here. That is the 3mm holes all over the place. You've got some in the legs, knees, sides of the arms, up in the shoulders, around back, of course. They are all over the place. Also underneath all of the armor panels there's a bunch of them as well. So again, you can mix and match parts wherever you want, whenever you want, with any other 30-minute missions kit. On top of that, the detailing on these kits is getting even better and better. It seems like Bandai is actually trying to make these look a little bit more like actual mecha as opposed to a bunch of parts attached together with an almost kind of mecha Lego look to them. It's definitely disguising those aspects a whole lot more. We've got a lot of nice shaped armor sections on this, as well as a lot of nice panel lining and detail that definitely need a little bit of ink. The shoulders on this kit are incredibly nicely shaped. I like the fact that we do have a 3mm hole in the side there for attaching on some extra weapons and equipment. And as far as I know, for the first time ever, we've got some nice piping detail on this kit. So we've got two pipes either side of the upper leg on both. I will mention there is venting style thrusters there, as well as underneath here as well. So a lot of detail underneath aspects, which usually isn't the case with the 30-minute missions. More piping as well up on the neck, which really gives that bit of a Xeon flair, and that does look incredible. The Sinanju style head is nice, but you will notice that underneath in here we do have two eyes. Not your typical kind of Sinanju looking mono eye, but I will mention there is a mono eye included in here as well, or should I say an entirely separate head, but we'll take a look at that a little bit later. I just chose to pop this one on. So you may notice there is something missing off the front and back of this as well. There is an included flight unit as well, but I'm holding off on that until the accessories, which I might as well take a look at right now. So jump now into the accessories, and here is the Verdenova with absolutely everything that it comes with. So what we get in here is the flight unit, alternate backpack attachment point, alternate head, as well as 3 alternate hands. So first off in here we've got a bunch of leftover parts in this runner. These are just various joint aspects. First off is these right here. These are 3mm joint to 3mm joint attachment points. And we've got various different 3mm peg and C-clip joints in here as well if you do want to attach things on in a multitude of different ways. So when it does come to the hands in here, what we've had so far throughout the review so far are these right here, which are pretty much standard holding hands. So these can hold on to the included weapons or any other pretty much high grade or 1/44th scale Bandai weapon. We do have some alternate hands in here, but there is a little bit of a letdown to these, and that is pretty much usual for these kind of kits from 30-minute missions, and that is the hands are nice, so we've got some somewhat relaxed widespread hands, but these do not have backs on them. So every time you do swap to some new hands, you do have to take the hands off. It's not the worst, definitely better than having no alternate hands at all, but it can be a little bit of a pain in the arse at times. So next up in here, we've got what's pretty much the main armament of this particular Mecha right here. So this is the backpack, which is also a little bit of a flight unit. The cockpit on that is glowing slightly under the blue light, so that does mean it is UV reactive. And we do have 2 long-range weapons round back. Now these can be disconnected quite simply like so, and then popped into the hands and held just like so, if that is the way you do want to equip your Verdenova. So there is 2 of these in here, and they're nice. A lot of 3mm adapters on these for attaching extra parts, and that little slot up top, which is for stuff like sights and other stuff that is sold separate. As with everything 30-minute missions, this right here is a bunch of units just attached together by various joints. These are kind of C-clip joints, so they allow the wings to move up and down just like so. We do have 3mm joints on here as well, so you can pop on whatever it is that you want. And on the sides of these then, these are a whole bunch of 3mm joints of different types to allow the weapons to swing around just like so when this is attached as a backpack. As for attaching this as a backpack, you just pop off this little front leg here, and then you've got your standard Bandai backpack adapter. Now we do have 2 choices here. This one is the larger one, which does attach the weapons down below, and the alternate one right here just converts this into just a simple backpack with wings just like so, if you just want this as a flight unit. This right here is the attachment to the lower segment of this, so of course you could attach something else up top here if you wanted a different kind of loadout. And because this is a standard Bandai 2-peg adapter for the backpack, that does mean it will fit on standard Bandai kits like gunpla. So if you just want to attach it onto those, it attaches on perfectly, like onto the Revive Oryx 78-2 here. Then you can just pop the old weapons underneath just like so. And there you've got yourself a nice backpack for using with gunpla. And by the way, if you don't like all the holes all over it, there is various option sets you can get out there, which do include little caps for over those to hide those, but you will need a lot of option sets. And while I do have the high-grade Oryx 78-2 right here, this is the size the Verdenova actually is. So even though it might look a bit sinanju-esque, it definitely isn't sinanju height. It's even slightly smaller than an actual Gundam. Anyway, as for attaching this backpack on, it's exactly the same as what we saw in the Gundam, and you just get it on in there and attach both of those pegs into the back, just like so. So now it's time to get it up on the air on an action base. The action base I'm using right here is the Action Base 7 by Bandai themselves. This is starting to become my favorite action base, mainly because you can actually pivot it side to side in the air, which you can't do with what I was previously using. Anyway, once it's up there, you can attach onto the chest the little cockpit section that was the front of this flight unit before it was docked. And this right here is what you get, but I have to change the head out on this. That head is driving me ba-fucking-listic. So yeah, basically it's that big old pointy bit, which is basically a kind of leftover design aspect from what it's based on, which would be Zeon Gundam style mobile suits. Now there is another option besides this. That little section up top, combined with the fact that it doesn't really attach on that well, means that front section is constantly, and I mean constantly, falling off. Now if you don't want problems with that, but you do want to keep the 2-eyed looking head right here, you can actually pop on this flat option instead. This will hold on a lot better because you won't end up leveraging it off with the blade section up top. But if you definitely do want the blade aspect on it, I do recommend gluing that in position. But yeah, like I mentioned, there are 2 head options in here. There's this one here with the 2 eyes, and this one right here with that big old cycloptic mono eye. Now that is very similar to what we would have seen before with the Portanovas, the original Balian Forces kits from this particular line. So that is what that looks like with the blade antenna section on it. So it's got one big old eye in there, and you can just pop that off just like that, and then pop on the flathead piece just like that right there. Finally, then you can actually pop the hands onto the side handles that are on these when they're brought round to the front like so for a nice shooting position. This does look really good. It all works out very smoothly and nicely. Like I mentioned, there are some stability issues with this kit, but overall it was nice to get into a position. This is a cool backpack and very much suits the overall silhouette of this particular design. This definitely one of my favorite 30-minute missions to date. So finally now into the articulation and the stability of this particular kit right here, and I'm going to say this is really where it kind of falls apart a bit. This kit is really jank, and the more you pose it, the more it does get jank, which is kind of sad. It's got a lot of backpack to deal with, but you find sometimes you're posing it, and it just drops right on out of the poses. Anyway, to test the pose on this, I'm going to take the backpack off, And mainly the reason for all of these kind of issues is the fact that when this line did first come out, there were simpler kits with less aspects and less kind of stuff to it, but the framework is still the same as before, and it just really isn't able to hold up to it too well. Again, it's not the worst, but doesn't feel quite as good as some of their more recent kits like the 30-minute fantasies. Anyway, let's get this done. Into the usual pose. Getting into the usual pose is simple enough, besides the fact there is a little bit of jank at, well, different aspects of it. Top of the head always falls off and the shoulders don't attach on so great, and there is some joints that are a little bit harder to move than others, like the shoulders and hips. If you know these kits, the shoulders and hips can kind of separate from each other when you are actually posing it a lot, which will, involve taking the limb off and re-tightening them again. Anyway, this is what you get, and as you can see, it is very, very impressive. This can pose quite a bit, but it can be a little bit irritating at times. I'll also mention that's quite the whopper of a hollow section in the back right there, but then again, these are simple and fairly inexpensive kits. Again, it's super, super nice, might need a little bit of tightening up as you build it though. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and these are extremely nice mecha model kits, and again, what you just saw is the basic aspect of this right here, that you just build it as the robot and use it as the robot. These are like Mecha Lego, pull them apart, every aspect, lower legs, upper legs, crotch, torso, arms, everything is kind of usable in whatever way that you want. You can build crazy over the top mecha with them, but I do find the actual joints and stuff on them don't really hold up to too much of a load really, so that can get a little bit awkward. Again, it is beautiful, has that sinanju-esque vibe to it, may need a little bit of tightening up if you want to use this in its robot form like this, but overall still an enjoyable, nice, awesome little build. I got mine through HobbyLink, link in the description. See you next time. Once again, I can't finish this video right here without special thanks to the channel members and the patrons over on Patreon, including Simon Paskin, Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Joe, RG59061, ShadowWolf179, Van Fawn, and Scotty Thomas.